What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Power is People podcast with your boy, Tay. And we're going to get into something interesting that I've been thinking about and that I've wanted to explain, because when I did my podcast about confidence, I had a guest on there by the name of Caitlin, and I thought it was great, but I think it was a little long for some people. All that aside, I mentioned in that podcast and some subsequent podcasts quite often about arrogance. And I've said that about myself. And really, I got really kind of high on that concept after reading this book. And I always, I'm not going to say I always had confidence, but as an adult, I've had confidence. And I've had people point that out about me, that I can be arrogant and shit like that. But I was never off put by those comments. I was like, well, fuck yeah, I should be. Being a man, being a black man in America, shit, what do I got to lose? You know what I'm saying? We start off with our backs against the wall. You understand me? But anyway, the book that I was reading is titled The End of All Evil. And it is by Jeremy Locke. So inside of this book, they had a part of a chapter which detailed the difference between conceit and arrogance. And I'm going to read some excerpts for you so that you can understand where I'm coming from, and also understand like the reason why I even share that about myself is because if more people kind of took that type of attitude, I think that would be positive. But I'm going to read some of that, and then I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I also encourage you guys to get that book and read that book. I can say without any hesitation, it is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And it's not that long. It's not that hard to understand. Anyway, let's get started. Arrogance versus conceit. Culture teaches that arrogance is an unwanted valuation of self. You are a being of unlimited value. Culture is lying to you. Arrogance is condemned by culture because culture does not want people to understand how much they are worth. It purposely confounds the meanings of arrogance and conceit. Conceit is believing that you are more valuable than others. All people have infinite value. To be conceited is to degrade the value of those around you. Authority is the ultimate conceit. It lays people low lest they believe that it is they and not law which has value. Arrogance is an understanding of your own worth. Culture condemns it in order to suggest that you are really not of sufficient value to do, say, or accomplish things that you desire. Arrogance offends others because they have been taught by culture their entire lives that they have little or no value. They are hurt by the misunderstanding that arrogant people are better than they are. They are taught that arrogance is conceit. If people were not so easily swayed by the doctrines of culture, they would recognize that all people have equal value. When they see the arrogance of a person who has faith in themselves above that of their own, they would rejoice. If an arrogant person has great value, then so do they. Culture condemns arrogance in order to crush the spirit of faith. Without culture, people would allow themselves to revel in the inspiration that arrogant people provide. The arrogance to believe that we can fly, cure disease, and accomplish wonders. The arrogance to suggest that you can govern yourself. And that's the end of that. But I say it so much because of those reasons, because I feel like I'm not the only person that can be arrogant or should be. Have any of you guys ever watched the Berserk anime? There's something in there where the antagonist, Griffin, is, I believe, thinking about Guts when they're actually cool at this time. And I believe he said something to the effect of, he can't see the rest of the mercenaries, their little band, the Hawks. He can't see them as his equal because they just following him. He can't see them as a friend necessarily. But Guts, who kind of had his own mind, he could see him as an equal. And so he respected him and saw him as a friend. And there's something to that, where when somebody is over the self-loathing, they're over the self-depreciation, they're over the victimhood, and they have some arrogance and confidence about themselves, like there's a difference in experience. And because there's a difference in experience, there's a difference in the communication and the conversation. Like, I may not be able to discuss certain ideas or experiences with certain people because they have a self-loathing attitude, or they have the attitude of minimization. Everything is brought down. It's always the bad side. Everything is impossible. But when you have some arrogance about yourself, you know, the conversations are like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Yeah, I've done that before. I'm doing this. But it's okay. You're not bragging about yourself. You're meeting that other person. Y'all are having a conversation about your experiences and about things, about yourself that are positive, the things that you think, and those things you usually don't come out as, I'm not able to do. I can't do this. I can't do that. That kind of conversation, that shit dies very fast, man. Because I'm over here saying things that you can't relate to, or things that is really it might bring jealousy out of your heart. And I've experienced this. And then people say things that come off as envious. And I ain't gonna lie, I had to cut somebody off over that, man. Because, when it comes to men, and, we talk about women and shit like that, I was telling them about what I was doing. And then there was some slights afterward, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. Like how can me doing X, Y, and Z turn you into a hater? You can do the same, and you should. Why aren't you? That's where you meet me, and we on the same level. Don't be a hater. That's that weak shit. And that's why I say I'm not conceited, because I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I got good things about me. I got things that, is hard for me to do. Just like anyone else. But the arrogance is, I believe in myself. If I can't believe in nothing else, I know that if nothing else, I can try, and that doesn't defeat my value. That doesn't destroy my value. One thing that helped me to understand it that way is the way I view spirituality. I couldn't exist without the blessing of God, without the energy of God. God is the reason why the breath continues to enter and exit my lungs. And I believe that God, the thing, what's inside of us as humans is God. Same thing with the animals. That's God, man. If you understand that, how can you look down at yourself? And how can you look down at someone else outside of the actions that they're taking? If everyone understood this, the world would be a much better place. Because there's nothing about you that's, quote, wrong, unquote. Yes, we may have issues. We may be born with certain issues. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, you take care of yourself. You love yourself. It's somebody out there that was born with no legs, but their arms are strong as fuck because they've been working out. They didn't give up. They didn't sit there and have a pity party. They work with what they got. Sometimes we get dealt the bad fucking hand, man. But we got to play with that hand anyway. A lot of you motherfuckers fold. But see, when you fold and you keep moving on, man, you start affecting other people in a negative way. My thing is, God got you here for a reason. God is in you for a reason. You are unique. You are the only person that's you. You are one of one. But I am too. And so I got that arrogant attitude, which means, ain't nobody gonna put me down. Ain't nobody gonna stop me, man. At the same time, this is the number 2 point, aside from spirituality, that really makes me identify with that definition of arrogance, is prior to me reading and internalizing that concept of arrogance, I used to read a lot of Eastern spirituality, and there was one cat named Osho, and there's some controversy about him and his life, but whatever. A lot of the shit that he said was on point. And I can recall in one of his books, which was full of transcribed lectures, he was talking about the ego. And I had never really contemplated much about the ego. I was like 19 at the time. But that was the point when I had started working on essentially killing the ego. And I use the words killing the ego as in, you can't bring it back. But this is the thing. I went through a process just mentally, just doing, I couldn't even tell you exactly what I did, but it was just a constant thing. I guess like a constant exercise in watching my ego when I was confronted with a situation that struck a nerve or that bothered me, or even, some merits, receiving credit for something. I just watched the ego and I tamed it. And I like to use the word kill because it's drastic, but I guess I tamed the ego, because when you don't tame the ego, it runs wild, and then you get in your emotions, you get inside your feelings all the fucking time, because everything is me. Everything is about, somebody offended you, something bothered you. Oh, I did this great, I did that great. How come I didn't get any credit for it? When you destroy the ego, then you can control the ego as opposed to the ego controlling you. And I think this is an important step in becoming that authentic arrogance, which is healthy, a healthy arrogance. You can call it confidence if you want, but I believe it's healthy, because this is the thing. Because I'm cool with myself, I'm full with myself, I don't get any enjoyment out of doing anything negative to anyone else. That don't make me feel good, man. Taking advantage of somebody else don't do shit for me. All right? Kill the ego first. And I say kill it, but this is the thing. You can't really kill the ego. It's like a part of your psyche. I suppose you could, but I didn't go that far. You don't have to go that far. You just have to be able to control it. The ego should be a tool for you. It should be something that you can pick up and then you can put down. If you need to use a wrench or a hammer, you don't let that wrench or that hammer control you, do you? No, you control it. You have to hammer the nail in. The hammer isn't using you to do it. You see how dumb that sounds? You're using the hammer. You're using the ego when necessary. And sometimes it's necessary, but it doesn't always have to be on. Another example. If you are not in the bathroom, but you leave the light on, why are you leaving the light on if you're not in there? Is it helpful? No, it's not. Go and turn the light off. Sometimes you gotta turn the ego off. Think about how many issues, fights, hurt feelings, angry feelings, grudges, things that we get into over the ego. And believe me, it's not easy to destroy the ego, tame it, and then control it. But it took me years. But it's useful. It's helpful. It is so helpful. Because it's going to make you feel good about yourself. That doesn't mean that nothing will ever strike a nerve ever again. But you can control the ego because you realize what God is. You realize God is inside of you as long as you accept the benevolence and you try to share the benevolence as opposed to, really seeking out doing negative or doing harm. You understand that this ego thing, this shit just gonna get me into trouble, man. It's just gonna make me feel bad. Within ego is a lot of comparison, and you don't need to do that if you know that God made everybody for their own shit. Made you for your own shit, bro. You know what I mean? What the fuck you mad about? What's on another person's plate for? God made a meal just for you. And when you don't finish that meal, you ain't gonna feel full. Cause you trying to see what's on their plate. But I ain't gonna chew y'all head off, man. Hopefully y'all understand where I'm coming from. I think I gave the clearest explanation that I could ever give. Most thorough and comprehensive. You know, let me know what's up down in the comments. Please press like before you exit. Please share. Holla at your boy. Real Power is People Podcast. 1.